Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where we talk about all things movies. Welcome especially if you're new. If you enjoy talking about movies and staying up to date on movie reviews, be sure to subscribe so you get notified or you're, up to date whenever I drop a new review, which is usually about 2 or 3 per week. But yeah, I just got back from seeing You Won't Be Alone at the theater, and yeah, let's talk about it. So to begin, I'll just give a brief synopsis about the movie. And this movie is about it is about an isolated mountain village in the 19th century Macedonia, where a young girl is kidnapped and then transformed into a witch by an ancient spirit. So, going into this movie, I didn't really have any expectations. I wasn't really aware of it coming into this weekend. I just saw that it was a new movie that was out at my local AMC. And so, with, the other movies that were available, or I think there was pretty much just 3 new movies available to see this week that looked any good. So that was the third one. So yeah, with that, I watched a trailer for it. I think I was a little concerned, as I don't care for horror all that much, that it was going to be a horror movie because it starts to look that way by the trailer, but then it looked like it would end up being just a drama more or less, which is what it was. I think IMDb has it listed as horror and drama, but I think it's a drama. I wouldn't really classify it as a horror movie. But yeah, with that, let's get into my thoughts on the movie. So for this one, I think it's a little hard to talk to without kind of going into spoilers, or at least the things that I want to talk about are spoilery. So here's a spoilers warning. If you haven't seen this movie, just kind of skip ahead. This is a movie that I enjoyed. I think you should check it out. It is a movie with subtitles and that sort of thing. So if that, is something that you don't go for, just be aware of that. But I would say if you're open to a movie that's not in English, definitely check this one out. But yeah, with that, we'll jump in and just kind of discuss my thoughts on the film. So first up, just kind of to continue on the thread of subtitles, I thought it was an interesting choice that they had the main characters. Like for me, I was reading subtitles, so I wasn't understanding the language that was spoken, but her like grammar and vocabulary were very limited, and understandably so. But she's like narrating the whole story, and I thought that was an interesting artistic decision, because for me as the audience member, it was at times a little hard to follow exactly what she was saying. So it came across almost a little bit like poetry, or that's what it felt like for me. Like I have a very mathematical brain, so I usually have to read like poetry, like a line of poetry several times to kind of get the full meaning. So that kind of is what this felt like, where I was reading something but not really fully understanding it, or trying to figure out exactly which of the couple possible translations or interpretations you could make out of it. But I don't know. I think that helped. I think it was an interesting decision. I think it worked for the film, even though it was a little bit of a struggle on my part. But yeah, I think the cinematography for this movie is gorgeous. It was, so many landscapes that are captured in the film that just look very beautiful, and that alone I think makes the movie worth seeing. But it's also telling a really good story and investigating or kind of dwelling on like several themes, and so that's kind of what I want to get into and the main focus of my thoughts here. I thought the witch was like, her creepiness and how she looked was really well done. Like that was, I can see just her character being in the movie. I can see the label of horror getting placed on this movie, but it's not. Yeah, that I think is why horror is associated with this movie, even though I don't think it should be. There's just a creepy character, and that sort of thing. But I wasn't sure if the girl was going to turn into that, like if that was just a condition of her being a witch. But since the girl, when she becomes a witch, doesn't look like that, my conclusion is the OG witch looks that way because something happened to her. And I thought that was interesting to kind of wonder what that was as the movie was going out. And I don't think they ever actually tell us, but I think it was in the second half where I had been thinking about it a bit more, and at least I came to the conclusion that I think she looks that way because in her lifetime she did what the girl was doing and kind of living these different lives, and one of them turned against her, and I think she was outed and burned, although not to death. So I think they tried to burn her at the stake and she got away, and that's why she looks the way she does, which maybe that's just a misinterpretation on my part, but if it isn't, if that's what they were intending, I think that was a really cool kind of detail that gives her backstory, and I think it feeds like that. I kind of came to that conclusion as well because I think it feeds her bitterness towards the girl trying to take on these different lives now. Like I felt like she'd been there before and it didn't work for her. So she's trying to tell that to the girl while also like being bitter about seeing that it's actually working for her. But yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts on The Witch. Moving on next to the mother, I thought the mother was a pretty cruel mother. Like to give up her child. I don't know. Like I mean, the not to really like pass too much judgment on the character, but yeah, she gave up her child, but then made a bargain to at least keep her for 16 years, which you'd think like, hey, I made a bargain with this witch and my daughter's life is going to be terrible once she turns 16, and I have to give her to this witch. So I'm going to give her the best life until then. No, she doesn't even do that. She then takes her daughter and then raises her in a cave and gives her basically the worst possible life to lead up to the point where she's then going to be given over to this witch, which I think is like cruel on both ends by the mother. So that was, yeah, a very broken character, I think. But that just wasn't cut out to be a mom. So that was interesting and kind of, yeah. So the raising her daughter in this cave, it's no surprise that what the daughter who's narrating the main character, she has this like broken grammar and limited vocabulary because she didn't grow up around other people. And then even later on in the movie when she starts to become like take on these other forms of the different people, I thought it was realistic to not have her just immediately know how to speak. So it wasn't made very clear. I think in her like second or third forms that she takes, they didn't make it like I didn't notice whether or not she was or wasn't speaking. Like I feel like she'd pick up the language after a while, but at least in her first couple forms that she takes and lives that she lives, she's not speaking the language, and they think she's hit her head or is possessed by a spirit or something like that. But I thought the movie as a whole though, it clicked about halfway through kind of what the theme of the movie was, and that was just it's basically a study of human life from the different perspectives of humanity, whether that's from a man, a woman, or a child sort of perspective. And I thought it was really interesting to see that through the main character, where she starts off and basically doesn't have a life. She's raised in a cave, and you're left to kind of sympathize for that character. Like, yeah, what sort of life is that? It's not. She doesn't have any human contact except with her mother and then with the witch. And yeah, you're left to kind of pity her. But then as the movie goes on and she has this ability to transform into other people, she actually gets to like experience more of humanity than anybody by living these different lives and taking on the different people and their forms. So I thought that was really interesting to go from one end of the spectrum of not really experiencing any life to experiencing it more than anybody else because she can live basically multiple lifetimes. So I thought that was that was really interesting that like yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of the film and diving into those sort of themes. And then just going into the kind of final, like the final act and her final lifetime that they depict, where she wants to, find a husband in this case because she's taken on the form of a girl, and to like have a child. And I thought it was so yeah, the witch then kills her husband, which I thought was pretty shocking when that happened. Um, the Although yeah, as soon as you like as it was playing out, you're like, oh man, no, she didn't. Like you kind of knew it was coming, but it still was like gut wrenching to like see that. Um, so that was tough to watch, and you're just like, I don't know. Part of you is just like, man, this witch is so bitter. Like, what won't she do? So when she comes back in and the witch is standing over the child, you're like, oh no, she better not. And then she grabs at the child, and I was pretty sure she just slit its throat. I think it's a girl. They say it is a girl, I think. So I think it's yeah. They slit her throat, and I honestly thought she did. I was like, man, that is some top notch. Like that is a lot of bitterness to be killing a baby. But then it turns out that she just basically made the baby another witch, which I thought was that went against the rules that they established. That she only got one, but I don't know. I just kind of went with it. But I was just glad that she didn't kill the baby. 'Cause that would have been horrible. So yeah, those are kind of the main points that I remember or thought were interesting about the film. I thought the first act or like kind of the first third of the movie was a little slow in how it moved, but I was fully invested. Kind of once it got to the point where she was taking on the different lives of the different people, that's where it had me invested, and I think the pacing was really good from there on out. But yeah, the first third was maybe a little slow, but I understand it for kind of laying the groundwork for the rest of the movie to come. But yeah, overall, those are kind of my thoughts. Not much negative to say. Other than that, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I thought the acting was good, and the cinematography was really good. So yeah, overall, I thought this was a good movie. I'd give it a letter grade of an A. It's not necessarily like the most fun or the most entertaining. It is a little bit more dense, so I would kind of compare it to having a like a very good meal as opposed to dessert or that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth watching. But yeah, I thought the movie just did a good job of examining, what is humanity and what is life from all the different sort of, I mean, it doesn't cover all of them, but from a variety of perspectives, and just kind of what does that look like? What does that mean? And I thought it did so while packaging it up in a very well captured as far as cinematography goes, and a well captured package. So yeah, that does it for my review for You Won't Be Alone. If you've had a chance to see this movie, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you pick up on some themes that, I didn't pick up on, or do you completely disagree with my interpretation of the movie? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash the like button. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next review.